Welcome to the GreenLight Investor. We'll be covering information for the week ending January 16th, 2015. Our goal is to make managing your 401k both a simple and easy process. I'll go through an overview of our worksheet, and then I'll highlight a few of its key features that you're able to use each week to stay on top of your 401k choices. Let's go right into the worksheet. As you can see, it's divided into three parts that I'll go over. First will be the investment choices, then I'll talk about the performance numbers, and finally I'll go through the weekly trends, which are the most important and unique part of this worksheet. As you can see, the investment choices are broken up very similar to what you have in your Deloitte 401k. You'll have the fund number on the left side, it'll have the symbol, the fund name, and the description. It starts out at the top with the core investments, which are the index funds, and then we break it down into the satellite funds. These satellite funds are arranged from the most conservative at the top, and as we scroll down the worksheet, they become more aggressive. We have the money markets on top, the fixed income, U.S. growth and income, U.S. funds, international funds, and the sector funds. Next, let's take a look at the performance numbers. These are changed each week to bring you up to date as to how each of the funds is performing. This column shows the closing price for the week. We'll have the month-to-date column for the week. The quarter-to-date will be updated, as well as the year-to-date returns. This is a real simple way for you to go through. You can scroll down and see how your fund selection is performing in the current market conditions. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the fund performance so we can focus on what I think is a really important part of this, which is the current weekly trend score. To minimize the performance, we'll simply click on View, Screen Custom Views, and let's do this without the performance columns. Click Show, and they'll disappear. Our weekly trends are designed to be very easy to read. Green lights generally mean the markets are very positive. Red lights generally mean that there's a negative trend in the market. Let's start out by looking at the relative strength trend change column. That's the center line for the evaluation system that we'll be going over tonight. To the left of this, I give each fund a short-term, an intermediate term, and a long-term trend score. The long-term trend score is the primary direction of the fund. The short and intermediate terms are simply early warning signals that there may be a change in place. To the right of the RS change column, we give each fund a weekly trend score. The higher the number, the stronger the trend. The lower the number, the lower the trend. The different tiles will be colored green when their trend score is above 0. The tiles will be colored red when the trend score is below 0. Let me show a couple of examples on how you might be able to use this to decide which funds you want to be in and which funds you may want to exit. Let's say you're trying to decide between two of the bond funds. We have the Inflation Protected Securities Fund and the Total Bond Fund. By simply starting out at the RS change column, we'll see one click to the left is a bearish sign and a red tile, and just to the right of it is a red tile. On the fund below that, our Total Bond Market Index, you'll see a bullish sign, a green tile, and on to the right of it, you'll see another green tile. So let's see what the difference is and how you can use this to make for your fund selections. To dig a little bit deeper, we've set it up so you can simply click on the fund symbol, and it'll take you to a Bloomberg web page that will show you how the fund is doing. At the top, it'll show different time frames and how the fund is done. And more importantly, you'll get a chart that will show you the direction of the fund. When the fund looks like it's heading lower, It usually is. When it looks like it's heading higher, that means you've got a chance to make money in the market. This page is also really helpful because it's going to give you information about the fund. It's going to give you a phone number and a website to go to. It'll give you the fundamentals of the fund. It'll tell you about the dividends, the fees, and the top holdings for the fund. Let's go ahead and go back now and take a look at the next fund that we're going to compare this with. This one has the two green lights, one to each side of the RS change column, and those are the ones that we like to be in. If again I simply click on the link, that's going to take me to the Bloomberg website, and I'll get a chance to see what this fund is looking like. By just looking at those two green lights, it winds up that this fund has an upward trend that seems strong. Again, you'll see the performance numbers for different time frames. And as you scroll down, you'll get information about how to get in contact with the fund, including its website. You'll get the fundamentals, the dividends, fees and expenses, as well as top holdings. Let's go to one more example that is right below on the next set of index funds. Here's a U.S. stock index fund, and you'll see that there's an international stock fund. Again, if we start out at the RS change and we find a fund that has a green light to the left of it and a green light to the right of it, generally you should see a positive trend. Let's go out, take a look at this, and see what we find. Again, after you look through the top information, you'll see that for the last year, it's been a nice fund, even though it's been a little bit choppy recently. You're seeing that the trend has generally been stronger. Same information on each fund is available for each of the pages. Now let's take a look at the final fund here in our example, which is the International Stock Fund. This one's showing that there's a red bearish tile to the left of the RS change column, as well as a red tile to the right of the RS change column. We'll click on the link to the Bloomberg page and take a look at the fund. And we'll see that since about June, this fund's been in a downtrend. This is important information, and again, it's very easy to find these funds based just on those two green lights. If you want to dig a little bit deeper too, this same page will have the fund information, the fundamentals, dividends, fees, as well as top holdings for the funds. I like to look at the top holdings because it's interesting to see what the managers are currently holding in the funds. All right. One more interesting feature on the right side of the RS column are the trend score numbers. These are interesting because they're often an early indicator as to a change of direction in the fund. What we've seen here with, let's say, this top bond fund is it started out at a 0.8. The trend weakened to 0.6. It weakened further to a 0.1, showed a yellow light there. And then the last 3 weeks has been weakening to a minus 0.32, minus 0.39, and seems to be stabilizing at a minus 0.34. On the other side of that, the second bond fund we were looking at started out at a 0.9, went to 0.8, 0.39, but still stayed green, and over the last 4 weeks has been strengthening to a 0.43, 0.52, and up to a 0.64. So it gives you a fine-tuning of how the direction of the fund is going. Well, there's lots of ways to use this green light system. I'm just highlighting the very basic system right now. Let's do one more example before we wrap things up. Let's go down to the U.S. equities and take a look at a couple of funds there using the same RS column. And we'll be looking for a fund that has red lights, and then we'll be looking for one that has green lights next to it and see how those two differ. Let's go down right here. Let's go down to the Natural Resources Fund. Here's one that we've seen has been red for quite some time. We're seeing that it's got a bearish, red tile to the left of the column, and we have a bearish column or a red tile to the right of the column. It also has an extremely low trend score, so that shows that it's been very weak for quite some time. There's no reason to be in funds that have these negative trend scores. Let's go take a look and see how the performance has actually been. When you pull up the Bloomberg chart of this, you can see that since about June, this fund's been in a pretty steep downturn. So when you saw the red lights, it was a good time to exit the fund and avoid some of this downdraft. One more time, I'll just go through this, then it's a good way to research your funds. This one will take you to the website. It'll show you the fund manager and additional information, including the dividends, fees, and top holdings for the company. And by contrast, if you're looking for a fund to put new capital to work in, let's go right to some of the funds that have a bullish or a green light to the left of the RS trend score, and one that has a higher or uptrending tile to the right of the fund. Here we have the Vanguard Growth Index Fund. Let's click on that, get an idea of what that fund shows. Here again, you're seeing that this one's been in a nice uptrend. As long as we're seeing those green tiles to each side of the RS trend score, the trend tends to be generally higher. And let's go back to our worksheet. And you'll see that there's quite a bit of red in these, so you have to be a little bit careful nowadays. The last feature of this that I'd like to go over is you'll see in the RS trend score that the week over week change, which is what this shows, is positive for the international funds. And this is particularly, you get a snapshot by looking at the core index funds, and that's showing that that's had the best relative strength, even though it's been one of the more beaten up funds. If you go down the columns and look at the international funds, you'll see that in general, those have been outperforming a lot of the other funds in the selection list. And you'll also see that they've been very red, and they're just starting to turn green, which means they may be starting a new uptrend, is how I would be looking at it. So it's definitely worth doing more investigation into each of these funds and see if it's a good time to allocate resources into some that are just starting to turn green. Again, my contact information is up at the top left of the screen. If you have questions or would like to go over this, please feel free to send me an email and I'd be happy to go over this with you. I want to thank you for taking a few moments to watch this video. I hope it's been helpful and has given you some ideas and resources to help manage your 401k choices. Thank you.